So we're going to talk about the Finding a Topic worksheets. You'll notice you have two versions. One is a blank version, like this one, with questions and blanks for you to fill out yourself. I'm going to go over the filled out version with examples of the kinds of things that you might be writing as you're choosing your topic. So the first thing we like to start with is thinking about yourself. What concerns you? Because sometimes students tend to pick hot button topics that are popular in the media to be discussed, but they don't really have much personal meaning for students. And that doesn't mean that you can't choose those topics, but you usually do a better job of writing a paper if you choose something that is a lot more specific to you, your own interests, your own knowledge, and that really hasn't been covered to death before. So you want to have something that you have a voice that is unique and something to add to the conversation. And if there is a very popular, extensive conversation already, then it may be hard for you to find a way to join that conversation that is new. So the first thing I like to ask students to think of are qualities that they have, communities they belong to, groups, interests. So I'm doing Buffy Summers. You might know her as the Vampire Slayer. She lives in California. Her parents are divorced. She is a vampire slayer, as well as a college student and a fast food worker and a feminist. So those are all avenues she could use to explore things that are more interesting to her. For this worksheet, I ask you to pick 3 of those categories, and you'll notice you have 9 blanks. You don't necessarily have to fill all of them in, but you should try to fill quite a few in so that you have choices to choose between. So Buffy has chosen 3 categories to explore, being a Californian, being a vampire slayer, and being a feminist. So as topics that might affect her as someone who lives in California, earthquake safety might affect her, water availability, school funding, or sun exposure. Those are all things she might consider. As a vampire slayer, I assume she is concerned with medical confidentiality, as she may be sustaining injuries that she doesn't want to reveal how they are achieved, I suppose. Daylight savings time seems like it would be a thing. Like, if it's dark longer, if more people are out after dark, wouldn't they be more in danger from vampires? And of course, cemetery locations again. If she's a feminist, there's certainly way more options than this that she could address. She could address the wage gap, reproductive rights, catcalling, fashion or clothing industry, the media treatment of women. This was written before, this sample sheet was written before the Me Too movement. She could absolutely put the Me Too movement in here. That would be absolutely something she could do. So there's a lot of options that she has. She's chosen, in this case, the media treatment of women. And this is something you want to think about, what kind of paper you are writing. So if you're being asked a how-to, it might be better for you to write a how-to maintain an earthquake-safe home or prevent sun exposure or something like that. If you're writing a cause and effect, then maybe something like, here are the causes of the wage gap, that kind of thing. Or here are all the implications of daylight savings time that maybe this is why we used to have it and why we shouldn't have it anymore. So there's a lot of different kinds of assignments you could have. A lot of times I use this worksheet for a Rogerian argument where you have to think of an issue that you have an opinion on. So if Buffy were doing that, she might feel like she doesn't know very much about water availability to have an opinion. She doesn't care about sun exposure, but she is passionate about something else. Maybe she really cares about daylight savings time, and maybe, you don't. But if you find something like that, then for the Rogerian argument specifically, and this worksheet can work for other arguments, but for the Rogerian argument specifically, one good way to find your opponent is to then Google the opposite of your opinion and see what comes up. So if we look further at this worksheet, just to fill out the rest of it, we see that Buffy has chosen to look at the media treatment of women. And this is actually a pretty broad topic, so we're going to have to narrow that down a little bit more. Another thing she wants to consider are what kinds of sources will address this topic. So what kinds of sources can she find? In this case, you're likely to find television news that reports on this, websites, blogs, newspapers, and probably academic journal articles. There's probably quite a few studies on depiction of women in the media, maybe some specific aspects of that you could look at. Now, you want to make sure you can find the right kind of sources on your topic. So if your topic is too local, then you might not be finding more broad sources like, for example, academic sources. So if you know you have to use academic sources, if you're writing about, say, the water supply in Bryan College Station, then you may either have to use academic journal articles that are talking about water in general and apply them to the situation in Bryan College Station, or you might have to broaden your topic and say, well, I'm going to talk about best practices for recycling groundwater anywhere. So you want to know what kind of sources you're going to find. If it's an event that's happened very recently, there will not be academic sources. Is this something that people write their own personal stuff about, or is it something that media publishes? So think about that kind of thing. You also want to think about what you know about your topic ahead of time. What do you already know? Where are you starting from? So Buffy knows that actresses are often asked about their looks or their clothing instead of more important things. Female politicians are often discussed in regard to their clothing and appearance rather than their political standpoint, as well as criticized more harshly for taking a strong stand versus men. So those are some things she already knows. And notice this is a very short section. You might know a lot more, and you could do a brainstorm on that. But you want to have a starting place. But you also want to identify some places that you may not know quite yet. What don't you know about it yet? So, for example, Buffy might think, well, I'm not sure what happens to different groups of people that are not actresses or politicians. How does the media treat them? Do they treat them differently? I've never noticed this or looked into this. What could we do? Like, how would we even, if we are upset at the way the media treats people, what kinds of actions could we even take? Like, what would we do about it? She also mentions, well, she has heard that there is sexism in the gaming community, but she remembers there's something that happened that was big, but she doesn't know what it was. So that's something that she might decide she wanted to look into and find out more about. You also want to think about conflict or debate occurring about a topic, specifically if you're being asked to take a position, make a conclusion. A Rogerian argument's example where you do have to take a position. The proposal argument, you certainly have to propose an action on your topic as well. Buffy has noticed that some people disagree whether males and females should get different treatment to begin with. Some people disagree as to whether it is somehow insulting to ask people about their clothing. Some people may believe that saying, hey, media, you shouldn't do this would be interfering with free speech. So, like, they might say, well, this is a problem, but we have to let people do it. You want to think about what is at stake for your topic. And this is something that may come up in your conclusion because, remember, your conclusion is the significance. In this case, why is the topic important? Because half the population is women. Because the media is pervasive, it influences people, and she's interested in how it affects specifically herself and her friends, and if she has kids, how it would affect them. So you can come up with research questions related to those concerns. And notice that I also pair these with the kind of essay they would be. So if you ask the question, what problems and prejudices do women in the gaming community face? The answer to that would be informative, so you would be telling people about what happens to women in this community. Similarly to what women's rights groups are up to, here is what they are doing. Now, if you have to make a proposal, an action, then you're looking for something people are doing. What should journalists do to prevent themselves from exhibiting gender bias? If you're looking at cause and effect, what effect does watching television shows with sexist roles have on young children? Or if you're evaluating something, you're making a moral judgment on something. Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it good? Is it bad? How well does it do something? So if you wanted to ask whether civil rights laws that oppose sexism and racism and other isms, I guess, interfere with First Amendment rights to free speech, then you'd be an evaluation. The last topic sort of starts you with our library worksheet, or the last section of this gets you to our library worksheet. So one of the first things on the library worksheet is what is your research question? What are those key words? And that can help you do a search so that you can find the most results possible for that search. So you know that if you're not finding journalists and gender bias, then maybe you can do a search for media and sexism. So you can try to find some results. So in this case, for that research question, what should journalists do to prevent gender bias? Then there are different ways that could be worded to try to find more results. And of course, searching in the library is a different lesson. For this one, you just need to fill out the worksheet. Explore several topics, narrow it down to what aspect of a topic that you are going to be writing about.